Welcome to Duck Season Somewhere podcast. This episode is brought to you by the following sponsors. GetDucks.com, your proven source for the very best waterfowl hunting adventures. Argentina, Mexico, 6 whole continents worth. For 2 decades, we've delivered real duck hunts for real duck hunters. And USHuntList.com, because the next great hunt is closer than you think. Search our database of proven U.S. and Canadian outfits. Contact them directly with confidence. Trust is earned. By the numbers, 121 waterfowl subspecies bagged on 6 continents, 20 countries, 36 U.S. states, and growing. I spend upwards of 225 days per year chasing ducks, geese, and swans worldwide. And I don't choose shotguns for the brand name or the cool factor. Y'all know me way better than that. I've shot Benelli for over 2 decades. I continue shooting Benelli shotguns for their simplicity, utter reliability, and superior performance. Whether hunting near home or halfway across the world, that is the stuff that matters. Sit means sit and stay until it doesn't. No matter how well or how often trained, retrievers want those ducks as badly as we do, maybe even more. Chardog might be titled, but she's still just a dog. I'm over 50 years old and I still do dumb stuff, trust me. Retrievers are family. I wouldn't endanger my children near heavy traffic, and I'm not going to risk my dog jumping in front of blazing guns either. Gundog Outdoors' patented quick-release safety system is fully adjustable, tethers to any blind or stand, has titanium stakes for frozen ground, and a quick-release marine-grade shackle to quickly release Fido when the smoke clears. Visit GundogOutdoors.com. Connect with them on Instagram at Gundog Outdoors to see their growing line of Gundog safety and performance products. Enter hashtag GetDucks to receive 15% discount off of your first order. Boss Shot Shell's copper-plated bismuth tin alloy is the good old days again. Steel shot's come a long way in the past 30 years, but will never, ever perform like good old-fashioned lead. Say goodbye to all that gimmicky, high recoil, compensation, science, hype, and hello to superior performance. Know your pattern, take ethical shots, make clean kills. That is the boss way. The good old days are now. It really is duck season somewhere for 365 days per year. Duck season somewhere takes me year-round to worldwide destinations where I visit with the most interesting people. I'm your host, Ramsey Russell. Join me here to listen to those conversations. Welcome back to Duck Season Somewhere. I tell you what, it's been a stretch. It's been a stretch. Even here in California, it's been a stretch. Up every morning, driving every day. I have worn out Highway 99. Getting up and driving 30 or 45 minutes or an hour, going to different clubs, different duck holes, public lands. It's been an adventure. Today is still duck season in California, and I'm glad to be here. A little tired, but I'm glad to be here. Today's guest is Brian Huber. He is the California Waterfowl Association waterfowl biologist and, for over a decade, the wood duck program coordinator. Like myself, many of y'all may be surprised there's even wood ducks in California. There are. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Ramsey. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. And you got up this morning and went goose hunting, did you not?
Yeah, the last two days we've been chasing geese, trying to get them to commit, and we've gotten a few, but it was some tough hunts, but we got a couple. Had my dad out there. He doesn't get out that much, so we had a real fun hunt yesterday with him.
How did this massive Santa Ana wind help y'all?
Well, we were hoping for a little bit better results, but we just kind of got the geese were just kind of skirting us pretty hard, and we tried to maneuver and change things up, and just couldn't quite get them to do it right. But
goose waterfowl hunting in general is a huge culture out here in California. We've talked to several people about that already, but goose hunting is a big deal.
Yeah, and it's increased. You know, like the limits used to be not like they are now. And so with the higher limits that we were seeing, people are getting more and more into it, and you're just getting it's a big money competition now. Whoever has the biggest spread and the most decoys, I mean, back when the limit was 2, you didn't see all these people chasing geese. I mean, they'd rather go shoot ducks. So we're seeing a big increase in goose hunting and goose hunting activity.
Why do you think the goose limit is so high in the Pacific Flyway? For speckled-bellied, for example.
Well, their population's just been pretty constant and just doing good. So, the Fish and Wildlife has allowed us higher limits, 10 white fronts a day for the last, I believe it's 4 or 5 seasons now.
Man.
And it might be a little more than that. I can't remember when they bumped it up to 10. But, yeah, I mean, when I was a college student at Chico State, the limit was 4. I'd go out there with 24 full-body decoys and get my 4 birds and go home. And, nobody wanted to put that effort in. But now you get 10 darks, 25 whites. I mean, people are going after them hard.
We were talking about that today at lunch. I guess I'm going about 7 or 8 days consecutively eating some very good Mexican food in California, sampling it all. And we were talking about that today, how, now that the limit's 10, not every day, no matter what the wind or anything's doing, not every day are the duck gods or goose gods going to smile and bring in those 10 birds in an hour or two. A lot of guys are grinding it out. They're maybe shooting longer or whatever, they got to. And therefore, it's a function of pressure.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the birds aren't responding like they used to.
Absolutely,
Specks in parts of the world, specks are pretty darn easy to work relative to, say, a snow goose. And that's not the case out here. The ones I've seen are you got to play an A game. You got to bring a good game to kill those specks.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I remember I used to go to the refuge, and I'd be the only one on the whole refuge with the old Basin Abomination spec call. Nobody else out there was calling at specs, and you'd be the only one out there. And now, I mean, every single duck hunter in California's got a spec call on their lanyard, it seems.
Even the ones from Mississippi.
Yeah,
I brought one.
There you go.
I can't blow it worth a flip, but I can give them that old 2-note. Hey, come check us out over here. Tell me, let's talk about a little bit about the snow geese, because we have shot some snow geese. I've hunted with some different boys around here, and we've done well on the white geese. I've seen a lot of white goose spreads. I know yesterday Scott Feist down there had a fantastic couple of days of white goose hunting. It's a big deal out here, but I was talking to Casey Stafford a few days ago, and, he didn't understand, and I sure didn't understand, Brian, why the conservation order of snow geese in the Pacific Flyway is so restrictive relative to the mid-continent population. What's going on with snow geese here? They seem to be doing well and growing.
Yeah, they're doing good.
But you don't have a long conservation order season.
No, we don't. We have a late goose season, which is different. It's more of kind of a season to kind of keep the birds off the farmers' crops. But the way I understand it is that the federal regulations have to change to first allow us to have that late conservation season. And the pushback on that has been that we have, a little bit different populations than you see in the Midwest. So a lot of our birds are actually coming from Wrangell Island. And besides this last year, the population hasn't been booming, like the rest of the snow goose population. So they've been kind of holding back on opening it up wide open for, the conservation season and stuff.
What do you mean by Wrangell Island snow geese?
Wrangell Island, Russia, a lot of snow geese go up there and breed, and it's a really established breeding colony up there on Wrangell Island. We also, a lot of our birds are North Slope, Alaska up there, so just kind of different groups of birds coming down. So the way I understand it is really the feds have to allow us that conservation order, and that's like a act of legislation that's never
that's right.
Gone
it's
through.
Congressional to get to that point.
Yep.
Well, changing gears on you. Also, a few days ago, I was hunting in a zone that specks are protected. It's like a square, they called it, and specks are protected because of a tule goose, they called it, a subspecies of speckled-belly. But then somebody said it was initially established, that zone was initially established for the conservation of Aleutian geese, which seemed to be burgeoning because the limit's 10 out here on them too.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, it was originally established as an Aleutian goose closure area. Traditionally, the Aleutian geese were using that area a lot more. They really have shifted their distribution in California, and they're more down in the Delta or on the North Coast. But it worked out. They already had an established zone, and the Thule white-fronted geese, like you said, it's a subspecies of the white-fronted goose, not the regular Pacific white-fronted goose, but just a subspecies. And that zone was already established, and the Thule geese tend to really stay in that zone. We've got them marked with radio collars. The Fish and Game has been marking them with radio collars for a really long time, keeping tabs on their population. I mean, that's how we estimate the Thule goose population in California is based off the radio collars. So more or less, you can use the ratio of collared geese to uncollared geese, and that'll help you give a population estimate. So all during the winter, they'll go out and they'll do surveys, and they'll look for those collared geese. And so you say one collared goose, and there was 30 Thule geese associated with that collared goose. Now you can use those ratios more or less to estimate their population size.
I see. So that's really kind of the purpose of banding and collars and things like that.
Collars for sure.
They're no longer really using leg bands and stuff to monitor migration corridors.
It's more age
estimate.
ratios, sex ratios, to monitor their populations. Yep.
That's very, very interesting. I can remember hearing about a Thule goose decades ago, and talking to people out here like, needle in a haystack, you never kill one. They almost described it as a colloquial description, just like speckle belly instead of white front. That's kind of how they described it. And I've since learned it's different, and do a little research online. It looks to me like that subspecies, that breeding population of white front subspecies is way out, maybe like in western Alaska or that part of the Arctic relative to the specks, and their migration trajectory is right up in this area, here in Sac Valley.
Yeah, I mean,
corner of it.
Yeah, what's amazing is the new technology that we have now. So we've been putting these GSM GPS collars on geese. And we've marked some Thule geese with them, and we, watching their migration, we can follow them, how they go. They kind of follow the coast up north, and then they also, these white fronts and Thule geese, they fly directly over the Pacific Ocean when they come back. I mean, it's absolutely mind blowing. I don't know what it is, high pressure or low pressure, but whatever the wind is right, they catch the wind. And we had a goose 2 years ago. Started in Alaska. Within 3 days, that bird was in the Sacramento Valley, right over the Pacific Ocean. There was a short, brief period where he stopped in the ocean, and you could see where he was floating in the water for just a couple hours, and then he got up and made his way all the way into the Sacramento Valley. He damn near came right over the Golden Gate Bridge, circled the valley, and came right in. So
now, if I were to be out there speck hunting one day this week, and how would I know that I have short of him being collared or something like that, how would I know for a fact I have a Thule goose subspecies instead of a regular speckle belly?
So there's some characteristics to look for, but I mean, ultimately you're going to have to get bill measurements to confirm. There's kind of a matrix, if you will, of bill size for male, females, and you can use that matrix to tell, based on the bill length or column length. The column width and the bill height, and those will give you the measurements to actually tell for sure if it's a Thule goose. But generally speaking, they're a larger bird, they're a darker bird, so they have just a little bit darker color on their head, but the bill is really a big giveaway. And they traditionally have less barring than your really barred up white fronts that you traditionally see, so they'll have kind of more speckled bars. And, they're really like a...
What about an eyelid? Is there anything to do with their eyelid?
Some of them have like an eye ring, I've seen.
Okay. Yeah, like a yellow or pink
yellow
eye
ring. Yeah. And some of them have, Yep.
Yeah, that's just some of the stuff I've been told, and I've even seen some pictures of some guys that, shoot a dozen a year or something as they're speck hunting. I mean, man, they're notably larger.
Yeah,
and like from the front of their breast through their neck is notably darker.
Yeah, I mean it's easy.
I would almost say it's like the comparison between a greater snow goose versus a lesser snow goose. It was. I was like, wow, that really is bigger.
Yeah.
Like a baby Huey.
Yeah, I mean, when you have them in hand, if I've dealt with them a little bit, and I can look at them and be like, oh wow, that's got to be a Thule goose. But trying to observe them like we did for that project. I mean, you're using a spotting scope and binoculars, and you're trying to determine if it's a Thule goose or not. you can get pretty good at it, but like for the general person who's not looking at them every day like we are, it's really tough to tell them apart. It really is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And well, tell me this. Let's back up a minute. Who is Brian Huber? Who are you? How'd you get here? How'd you start duck hunting?
Yeah, so
where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Lake Tahoe, California here, not too far away. Born and raised up there, went to high school, got out of high school, didn't really know what to do.
Not a big duck hunting culture in Nevada, but some.
There's a bit, yeah, but I didn't duck hunt really much at all growing up. Didn't hunt. We went hunting a little bit, did like some squirrel hunting. We definitely shot guns, but we never really hunted, not like now. We kind of would we would go out and shoot and stuff, but never hunting, never shot a deer, never shot a duck, nothing of that. Maybe a couple rabbits, some squirrel hunting stuff, but nothing serious. So yeah, here I am, high school senior, graduating, didn't know what I was going to do. I applied for a school in Santa Barbara, which is really tough to get into for junior college. And so I got accepted, and my parents were like, well, here you go down to Santa Barbara, go to school. And I was probably the only kid that went to school down there that didn't realize how big of a party school it was. So this little Tahoe kid, coming from the mountains, going down to Santa Barbara, I spent some time down there and had a little bit of fun. And, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. It's like you go to college and you get all this pressure. You need to pick a major. You need to do this. And it's like if you don't have a passion or you don't know what you want to do, it's hard to kind of focus and nail it down, So I more or less, I didn't quite get kicked out of school, but it was close. I wasn't doing much for school, and my parents were like, you're done. We're not, helping you out anymore. So I moved back to Tahoe. And my good friend, he was coming down to the Chico area all the time, and he was salmon fishing. He's like, man, you got to come down here and salmon fish. As a kid, we grew up salmon fishing all the time. My parents' house, there's a trout stream in the backyard, 20 yards away where you catch, really nice rainbows and browns. So we'd started coming down every weekend, man, after work to go salmon fishing. And one of my buddies started going to Chico State, and he's like, hey, man, you could come down here and, salmon fish all the time and finish up your school. And, and so I started really getting into the salmon, and, the way my brain works is, I want to learn more about salmon, or fish or whatever I'm into,
Sure.
So I start, looking at biology and learning that side of things. And I was like, man, this is really cool. I can come down here, go to school, finish up. And so the same guy that got me into salmon fishing, he was a duck hunter, and he's like, man, you got to try this duck hunting thing, And I was like, dude, I don't want to duck. Who wants to go shoot a duck? That just sounds, it doesn't sound fun to me. I don't want to get up early, go stand in the marsh. What are you talking about? And finally he convinced me to go, and man, it's been history ever since. He took me out to Calusa Refuge just across the way here for the first time, and I still remember those 3 mallards coming right over the top of me. And after they came by, I was just in awe looking at them. And he's like, why didn't you shoot? And I was, man, I don't know what I'm doing out here. You're the guide. I don't know to shoot or not to shoot or what's going on, So that really started the waterfowl hunting thing. And, sure enough, there's a waterfowl biology class at Chico State. So I ended up going to school at Chico State. Walking through the halls, I saw this waterfowl biology class, and I was like, man, that's awesome. That's so cool, And I went and talked to the professor, and, it was funny when I first went in there. I was like, yeah, I'm a duck hunter. I'm excited about this biology. And he's like, well, this class isn't for duck hunters. This is for biologists, people that are serious about this. And, because a lot of people get excited, and, so yeah, I was like, oh, don't worry, I'll get all my schooling done and I'll be in this class, when I meet the requirements. And, sure enough, a year or two later, I was in that class, and, it was just, everything kind of snowballed from there. I graduated from Chico State with a degree in biology, and my buddy was working for California Waterfowl at the time, and he's like, hey, they need somebody for this position coming up. And I'd already helped them band over the summer a couple times, and it was pretty cool going out there banding birds. And so he gets the guy's contact, and I give him my resume, and the project was starting September 1st. The project's starting, and I hadn't heard from this guy, and I'm like, man, I didn't get the job, man. This is horrible. I didn't get the job. What am I going to do? And 3 days before the job starts, I get the phone call. You want to come work for me? And sure enough, I ran down there, and we were shooting rocket nets the week after that. And I've been with CWA ever since now.
Well, we were talking at dinner the other night, it's like field biology, as you're calling.
Yeah, just
You find a real sense of purpose in and
figuring out. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like figuring out. Catching ducks. It's really like an art form, and like
a lot like hunting them.
figuring it out. Yeah, I mean it's real similar. When we look for people, when we hire, we're looking for. You don't have to be a hunter, but if I'm looking for somebody and they're a hunter, I already know they kind of understand how this rocket netting is going to work. Like you got to scout, you got to find a spot, you got to think about where the birds are going to be, where you can hide so the birds aren't going to flare off or get away from the rocket net and all that stuff. So it really ties together with hunters and stuff.
When I was at Mississippi State, everybody that I went to school with, and I mean everybody, was what I call a hook and bullet biologist. And now there's been a massive transformation in the past 25 or 30 years in Mississippi State where very few of them are.
Yeah.
Do you make a distinction? You just said being a hunter helps them do field biology.
Yeah.
But is there any other advantage you see to it?
As far as what?
I don't know. Getting along with people. Or kind of their interest.
Yeah, I mean, as far as being a hunter
Yeah.
and doing the biology work, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're really working you're working with hunters, right? Sometimes we have to get access to private property. You have to get access to the refuge system. I mean, you have to work with these people, and you're dealing with that hunter mentality, whether you're a hunter or not,
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
People get tired of hearing me say it, but I've just got this belief that we hunters are conservationists.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe that out here in the Sac Valley of California, here in California in general, where there's 1,000 clubs. When you get to around Great Salt Lake, where there's all these private clubs throughout the whole country, where there's these private clubs, the recreational interest of hunters in hunting compels them to reach elbow deep, shoulder deep into their pockets, and put money into wildlife habitat. And yes, so they can shoot birds, but for beyond the birds they shoot, all these birds and all these cadres of wildlife benefits.
Yeah,
from that
everything
habitat.
else that benefits. Just you have a wetland out there. Not just ducks benefit. Everything else benefits too. Giant garter snakes in California are a big deal. So when you add a wetland, that's the habitat for that as well. I mean, and so that's beneficial to a lot more wildlife than just waterfowl.
Well, I didn't mean to flag you off that rabbit trail of getting started in what you do
all right.
and all that field biology. But to get back on point, I just noticed in meeting with you and talking to you several times that I think that all young people get into wildlife management, especially hunters that are like me and you that are engineered that way. We want to know more. We want to make the world a better place with regard to these species we hunt and that we love. And the fun stuff is field biology. But then a lot of times the career of wildlife management, that's like the entry level is the fun stuff. And next thing you know, you're sitting on a mountain of paperwork, filing budgets and doing spreadsheets and all this crap in the office, that's a headache. But a fortunate few continue to live the dream. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, yeah. So far I'm not buried in paperwork too bad, but yeah. And I started as a technician, right? So I'm, learning from my previous mentor basically that kind of taught me all the ropes for rocket netting and bait trapping and all the fun stuff we get to do. And now, I've kind of helped shift, where I'm helping more call the shots and helping run, what we're doing and setting everything up. So it's evolved a little bit, but yeah, I'm still out in the field, still get to do, the fun stuff as you say it. I'd be miserable stuck in an office 8 hours a day staring at a computer. It's just not in me to do it.
I can see that.
I like being outside. I like meeting people, working with other people and, trying to, I like being a problem solver, like we just started trying to catch some snow geese the last few years. And like, that was new to me, so that was exciting. Like how are we going to rocket net snow geese? Like, how are we going to do this? And you've probably driven around and seen all these grinds and stuff, right?
Unbelievable.
But you got to get them within, 10 feet of a rocket net. How are you going to do that?
How do you do that?
That's tough. Well, we found just finding loafing spots on like the wildlife area. So they'd go to an island, and we'd kind of pick out which island they're using the most, and we would watch them for a little bit, and then we'd wait till they leave. Sometimes that's at 8 at night. We'd go set up the rocket nets in the middle of the night, and come back in the morning, and hopefully they'll be there. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. So
I was surprised. I know tomorrow we've got a hunt scheduled together, and we're going to target wood ducks.
Yep.
And I said, well, there's probably wood ducks everywhere. But this morning was interesting. I was hunting not far from here with some friends, some new friends. Went to a club established in 1984, and it's now converted back over just to the private club of a family and a few friends. Beautiful, beautiful area. They've got rice fields, but we parked the Ranger. We walked across the Butte Creek on a little metal footbridge and fell off into this little riparian area of riparian forest area of valley oaks that in the dark, especially, the form of them looks just like the live oaks back home. It felt like I was in coastal live oaks, except of course the leaf litter is a lot different. But we went out and we actually set up on the Butte Creek to target wood ducks. And we get to this little opening, this little wide spot in it, and it's just shrouded with buckbrush. And it felt so much like Mississippi. I'm like, holy cow. I mean, California.
Yeah.
But as we were walking down this trail, there were wood duck boxes, wood duck boxes, wood duck boxes. And Eric was explaining to me how, back in the day, wood ducks were they were here, but they were uncommon. Mm-hmm. And there's been this massive undertaking with a lot of nest boxes that I know California Waterfowl is involved with. And he said, man, it has worked unbelievable wonders.
Yeah, so in 1991, the kind of California Wood Duck program was established. There was guys doing it before, but 91 is where California Waterfowl kind of got involved and kind of helped take over the coordination of the statewide project. So I know when you introduced me, you said I've been the Wood Duck program coordinator for a decade, but I've only been the Wood Duck program coordinator for a couple years.
Okay.
But yeah, before that I was a waterfowl biologist and not the Wood Duck coordinator. But we still helped with the Wood Duck program and stuff. But yeah, the California Wood Duck program, as far as I've been told, is the largest volunteer conservation program in the country.
Wow.
So we have over 600 volunteers throughout the entire state that all volunteer and help put up wood duck boxes on their own projects. And at the end of the year, I coordinate with those folks to kind of get their data, and we do like a big wood duck article every year for our spring magazine issue, which is kind of spring is when the wood ducks start nesting and all that.
More than duck hunting, get ducks is the lifestyle we all enjoy. It really is always duck season somewhere. Check out our caps, t-shirts, hoodies, and more at our new GetDucks.com store. That's GetDucks.com/store. Thank you for listening to and for supporting this podcast. And remember, life's short, get ducks. For anybody listening that wanted to do something similar on their own property or their camper in their area, is there a quotient or what is required for that undertaking?
Yeah, so you can build wood duck boxes. We have plans on our website, californiawaterfowl.org. There's plans on our wood duck section there, and you can look there. But yeah, you basically the story is you build a wood duck box. You put it up, but you have to maintain that box. So you put it up, and you got to put wood chips in the bottom
every year.
Every year, yeah, and multiple times throughout the year if you really want some activity. Because we have starlings, European starlings in California here. And they'll actually go in there and build their nest, and so that'll make that box unavailable to wood ducks. Mm-hmm. And we have like the volunteers too. We also have a bunch of volunteers that go and ban these wood ducks for us. So we have like sub-permitted banders under the wood duck program. And we have people that go out and manage their projects, and some of the bigger projects, they go out and ban the wood duck. So, I mean, on an average year, we're hatching roughly 30,000 ducklings just that we record through our boxes.
That's incredible.
And since 91, we're zoning in on the 1 millionth duckling for the program. So,
wow, that's a number now.
Yeah. So last year we had a really good year, but this year with COVID and everything, a lot of folks weren't able to access properties and weren't able to, California and their stay-at-home orders that a lot of folks followed. So our numbers are down this year, but yeah.
That's incredible. Is there a recipe or a magic number per acre or anything like that? If I were to have a meaningful response in nest boxes?
It's hard to say. In my opinion, it really just depends on the property. Some properties can have quite a few wood duck boxes, and some of them, you don't want too many there. But what can happen is if you have too many wood duck boxes, it'll actually promote dump nesting.
Yeah.
So you'll get wood ducks coming in there, dumping their eggs, and not actually sitting on that nest. So you'll just have a box of 30 eggs or whatever that aren't getting incubated.
And I've heard in the past that hooded mergansers are notorious for parasitic nesters. I mean, come in. Oh yeah, she's sitting on some eggs. I'm gonna let her sit on mine.
We have a real substantial population of hooded mergansers.
I saw a bunch of them this morning.
Yeah, and they typically nest a little earlier than wood ducks, so there's a little bit of overlap. But typically, if you're on cleaning your boxes and say you get them cleaned out by late January, the hooded mergansers will be in there in February, and they'll start nesting, and then the wood ducks won't come in until later. March, April, and May, June is when the wood ducks kind of start picking up. So.
Yeah. California Waterfowl Association to me represents, and I'm not saying there aren't any more in the United States. I'm just saying I'm unaware of an organization quite like that. At a state level, all the different things they do. You got this wood duck program. You've got a staff of biologists.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I just work with waterfowl programs, and just within that, we have the banding program. We have the egg salvage program. I'm not sure if you've heard about that.
I was fixing to ask you about it.
Yeah, so egg salvage wood duck program. We just started a delayed wheat program to kind of try and make the nesting habitat a little more beneficial in California for our local birds. So most people probably don't realize, but 70% of the birds shot in California are actually from California.
No, I didn't know that.
So we have a real substantial local population, and our mallard specifically is it's all local birds. A lot of folks don't realize that. We don't really get huge pushes up north like a lot of people think. I mean, 70% of the mallards are from California, and we know that through banding data. So we've been able to kind of tease that out.
Where do they primarily breed?
They breed in North Sacramento Valley, and mostly up in the northeastern zone of California.
Really?
Yeah.
Talk about this. I was with this morning with Deke. Deke the Freak, you mentioned. What a fun guy. Gosh, I think he said he's fourth generation rice farmer, not far from here. But he was telling me about this egg salvage program. I've never even heard of such.
Yeah, so the egg salvage program is a program that we do, and what happens is a lot of these birds nest in these ag fields, so all the natural prairies and all the natural grasslands are pretty much gone in California, and so what you have left is this croplands, and that croplands is very attractive to nesting waterfowl. So what'll happen is you'll have a cover crop or something for a rice field. Mm-hmm. So say it's organic, they'll plant vetch in there. Well, that vetch in the spring is just beautiful nesting habitat. Mm-hmm. So these mallards will go in there. Mallards, gadwall, and occasionally some cinnamon teal. And so they go in there. Well, the farmer's got to come and till that up before the birds are out. So the egg salvage program is basically working with the farmers to coordinate either nest searches. So we'll actually go in there with quads and a rope and search for the eggs.
Again, volunteers, I'm thinking.
This is mostly staff.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a egg salvage program coordinator, Jason Koslovich, who works for California Waterfowl, and he's in charge of kind of the egg salvage stuff. But it's all I'm out there helping. Our coordinator Carolyn Brady's out there helping us to search these fields. And so what we do is we search these fields, we get the eggs, and we collect them, and then we bring them to one of our partner hatcheries, and we hatch the birds out, and then once they're 5 to 6 weeks old, we band them and then release them back into the wild.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's
where specifically? I mean, where generally do you take these eggs? I'm a farmer. I see this hen get up. I go collect a bucket of eggs during the course of a day, and I bring them to CWA.
We'll get them in an incubator.
It must be a bunch of incubators.
Yeah, so we have 3 different partner facilities kind of throughout the valley. And those, there's one down in the Delta, there's one over by Marysville, and then there's one up by Chico. And either of those facilities, the eggs go to, and they have a bunch of incubators. They have like brooding pens. They have all the different stages for the different ducklings. And then, CWA will issue the bands to them to band, or we'll actually go there and band them for them.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's it's not a huge number, but we do, in a good year, there's like 4,000 mallards, 4,000 to 5,000 mallards.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Every little bit helps.
I mean, when you look at a population of 250,000, 300,000, kind of where our local mallard population hovers around.
250,000.
Yeah.
Thereabouts. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a huge number, but yeah, it helps. And it also helps the farmers. You know, a lot of these farmers, they see a bird get up, but they don't associate that bird with a nest in the ground. They're just like, oh, well, that's weird. A duck was sitting in a fallow field, you know, or a rice field, you know. And so talking with these farmers and, you know, kind of, you know, just explaining the conservation side, like, hey, that's a nest, you know, pick it up and we'll save the eggs or whatever. And, you know,
is there any incentive to the farmer to do this, or is it just purely an ethos?
Well, it's mostly an ethos, but that's where we're starting this delayed wheat program. So we're actually offering incentive to the farmer to delay their wheat. So wheat is one of the major crops that these birds are nesting in here in California, and so farmers can apply, and depending on their acreage, we'll actually pay them to delay it a certain amount of time to kind of to compensate them for the amount of wheat that they may have lost from letting it go longer than they usually would.
Right.
And so it's a good program. We just started the pilot year last year. We were out doing the surveys for it, and you know, seeing how many birds are using those fields and trying to keep track of it. So this year we're doing it again.
Knowing that so many mallards come from California, so many mallards that are killed in California come from California. That's 70% of birds shot in California are from California.
Yep.
That is
mallards. Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's just important. We've lost a lot of our habitat in California, that the breeding or the nesting habitat. So traditionally there used to be a lot of barley fields planted, and that's just more or less disappeared off the landscape. And then we also have these orchards kind of encroaching on the farmland, and so the orchards are not very beneficial to waterfowl.
Mm-hmm. That blows my mind. It truly blows my mind. And twice with hunters and people I know here in California, conversations, I've heard about Klamath, this area up north. One of the first waterfowl refuges, the first waterfowl refuge, one of the first refuges established under Theodore Roosevelt.
Yep.
A lot of waterfowl utilization, a lot of water issues, because between the federal government, something going on, a lot of water issues, and therefore, in periods of drought, which has been going on, the birds will displace to Tule Lake, I think they said, where the water tends to be more stagnant, and therefore, and I know from having watched your social media feed, the potential for botulism outbreak.
Yeah.
And that's a real big deal.
Yep.
I mean, because those birds that would die up there, I'm thinking would probably end up here in Sac Valley.
They should be here right now. Yeah. So, I mean, every year you're going to have botulism. It's just a matter of how bad it is. And typically on wet years, when you have enough water to kind of be pushing it through the system and you're not getting that hot, stagnant water, you can control the outbreak. But when it gets over 90, 100 degrees, you're going to have the botulism's going to start, coming out, and then the birds are going to eat it, the vegetation that grows the botulism, and they're going to get it. And, you have to manage those dead birds, because as soon as you have 10 dead birds, there's larvae, there's maggots feeding on those, and then the other ducks eat those maggots, and now they get it and die. So it just continually spreads and spreads and spreads. So it always happens. We always have small outbreaks. We have some outbreaks in the valley, but it's never really huge like it was last year. Last year, I mean, it's estimated almost 40,000 birds died up there at Tule Lake. And, Tule Lake Klamath, it's really
primarily mallards, or
mostly mallards, gadwall, a lot of just our local birds. So the Tule Lake and Lower Klamath is a big molting area for our birds in the valley here too. So there's a molt migration that occurs. So birds will actually breed in the valley here and nest, and then they'll actually migrate up to Tule Lake and Klamath to molt. Because they when they're molting, they prefer these big wetland complexes, and that's kind of the habitat up there, these big giant wetlands, a lot of acreage.
Yeah.
And on a normal year when they have water, it's fine, and there's a lot of water up there, and it's a great place. I mean, it's a great place to band. We're doing some banding up there, every summer, the refuge bands, and we help them band up there as well. But you get all these huge concentrations of birds up there that are used to going up there, and then you tie that with the drought years and not enough water to be pushing it through. You have this huge outbreak. And so what happened last year is they just didn't have the water to kind of flush and move around. And there was also a fire right on the edge of the refuge.
Oh.
And so that shut the refuge down. So they were having this outbreak as the fire's going, and they didn't have access to go out on the marsh to kind of pick up the birds to kind of slow the spread.
Oh.
And so it just really kind of catapulted into this really bad die-off this year. So
in a typical year when you can access it, if you hear of dead birds sitting out on the water, possible botulism, somebody's out there scooping them up, get them out of the system.
Yeah, you go. They got 4 or 5 airboats out there, and they're running them. We'll run the airboats when we're banding. We'll have our banding station set up, and we'll run the airboat, and we're kind of we help them keep tabs on stuff. Like, oh man, we saw a couple birds, and so you saw a couple dead birds, say there's an outbreak, so they'll go out there and work that unit, pick it up, and that kind of helps keep it under control. It usually doesn't get too out of hand, but it just kind of snowballed this year up there on them. So.
How would you describe the duck hunting in general in California? Because I'm pleasantly surprised at just what a rich and colorful history it is, a tradition, a culture, and overall high quality hunting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's the whole spectrum of hunting. You've got the $1 million clubs right behind us here where we're sitting, and then you got the public land refuge right across the way too.
And public land is generally good out here.
It can be, yeah. It's real competitive. It's I don't know if you've heard of like the reservation system and the lottery you got to go put in for, and it's tough to get on. But yeah, there's birds on the refuges. I mean, they've got closed zones, and they typically have really good management out there that's attractive to waterfowl. So.
Mm-hmm. And I've hunted San Francisco Bay for divers, and I mean you got your divers, you got your sea ducks, you've got your geese, you've got the puddle ducks. It's an amazing spectrum.
Absolutely,
of waterfowl hunting opportunities out here.
Yep.
Do you think there would ever be a swan season? 'Cause I've been past some areas that are. Wow, that's a lot of tundra swans sitting out there.
Probably not in California. Just the way, unfortunately, the politics work out here. It's not really based on science a lot of the time in California. It's based on touchy-feely
human
stuff.
Emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would be surprised if we ever got a swan season out here.
What about sandhill cranes?
Same issue.
Yeah. Even if crop depredation got bad, or
I don't think it would happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
we're trying to get a little more pintail out here, so that's once we can get
y'all need more pintail.
Once we can get a little higher pintail limit, we'll start there. I think that's
a good thing to talk about because I met with Chris Nicolai recently, and we were talking about the pintail bag limits. Delta Waterfowl is advocating a 3 pintail bag limit, no more than 1 hen. The data supports it, and I've hunted places with a lot of pintail until I came to California.
Oh yeah,
and like today, the prime example. We started off on the wood ducks. The wood ducks were a no-show. 7:30, 8 o'clock. We walked out to some rice fields, jumped in a pit blind. Right off the bat, John and I, boom, I got mine. Boom, he got his. We got our bull sprig.
And you're probably staring at him the rest of the morning, right?
There was a Macy's Day parade of pintails for the rest of the morning.
Yeah.
And we did. There's a widgeon. Boom, I get a widgeon. Boom, a pair of mallards comes in. I shoot mine, he shoots his. I mean, we were chipping away at them, and I'm sitting there on duck number 6, waiting on my limit, and it must have been 1,000.
Oh yeah.
I think a bald eagle flew over one of those rice paddies out there and got a lot of these ducks up, and they were just streaming past us, low and slow, long sprigs streaming into the wind, coming over, and I'm just sitting there watching all these beautiful drake pintails, but I'm looking. I mean, I'm pintail. Oh, shoveler, bam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let hundreds of beautiful pintails go to get my 7th duck, which is a shoveler, and it's just the absurdity.
Yeah, but you already seeing that's awesome, right? But they've had a 1 bird limit for a while, right? So they're not getting pressured like the other ducks. They're not getting shot at. I mean, when it was 2 birds, you could tell that they got quick to that fast. So when you bump it up, I'm going to enjoy shooting 3 pintail, but it's not going to be as easy as it is when it's 1.
Got to play a stronger game.
Yep.
You got to play a stronger game.
Yeah.
And and that's anymore. I was telling somebody the other day, it's not a guarantee you're going to shoot your 7 ducks or whatever your limit is when you go every day, no matter where you hunt. You've got to. It really is kind of sort of about how you play the game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think I could be happy if it were convenient going out to one of these beautiful rice fields and shooting a Drake pintail every day of the season and going to work.
It was great.
I could live with that.
It was great when you could go shoot two. You know, you get your 2 pintail. If I got my 2 pintail, I'd be pretty darn happy, and I could go home after that. Yeah.
The habitat quality, this has been a current theme every single day I've been in Sac Valley, is how unbelievably fat and succulent these pintail and widgeon and California rice-fed birds are.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, we got the winter habitat covered down here. I mean, I don't think we need any more winter habitat down here. There's rice fields, there's wetlands, there's refuges, and it's there's plenty of food for these birds. You know, we've done some body condition studies, especially when we had some drought issues in California, and these birds were just fine hanging out in the valley with even in really bad drought conditions. So.
And how would you describe water conditions this year relative to a normal year? Are we wet? Are we dry?
It's a dry year. I'd say we're looking, if we don't get some water, we're looking for a drought coming up this summer. It looks like we just haven't had any precipitation. I don't know our annual rainfall. We talked about that, but we just haven't got the storms. Usually we'll get some rain. It looks like next week we're going to get a little bit of rain, but we're looking for a drought. And this year was tough on rice farming because the reservoirs were down a little bit, and we didn't get the rain to kind of fill them back up, so they kind of enacted some safety water issues. So a lot of these rice fields didn't get flooded on parts of the valley. So there wasn't a ton of rice field. I mean, on a good year, we're going to have 500,000 acres of flooded rice in this valley. And on a slower year, it's 300, 400,000 acres of flooded rice.
Have you seen in the past 10 years or so, have you seen that with the restrictive pintail limit? I mean, pintail is a bread and butter duck. It is the duck of a California Sacramento Valley hunter.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my job is we're catching these birds twice a year, trying to ban as many as we can, kind of to contribute to that data stream that's just been going on and kind of showing their survival and showing how well they're doing in California. I mean, California, we're getting almost 30% of the continent's pintail population in California during the winter.
Wow. Have you seen a decline in pintail habitat that landowners might be putting out? Have landowners shifted notably management for pintail to give favoritism to other species that are maybe more readily abundant for the bag?
Yeah, like in the Sassoon Marsh, pintail tend to like open water more than like that real tight habitat, generally speaking. So that's why these rice fields are real attractive to them. But, like the Sassoon Marsh used to be, I mean, the bag used to be 7 pintail, and you'd have these guys in the Sassoon Marsh, they'd go out and shoot their 7 pintail all the time. But they would manage it, more open water, more kind of big water for the pintail. And same with some of the clubs, they'll change their management practice, to be more like tight puddle duck stuff, getting like more widgeon, more mallards, just not the pintail open water habitat.
Because what I'm sitting here thinking is, if we want more pintails, and we do, I mean, that's the whole reason we hunters and everybody else gotten on board with restrictive management. We want more pintails. Everybody, I think, would like to go back to a 10 pintail limit, like some of these old timers around here I've talked to.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the research is, it's not on the winter grounds. It's up in the nesting ground, and that's where the big shift has been in the habitat up there. They're prairie grass nesting birds, right? Well, a lot of that prairie grass is not up there anymore.
Right.
And what's happening is they prefer like these short stubble fields up there in the prairie pothole region, and so they farmer will have their field, they'll leave it stubble, and so that looks like a short grass prairie field to these pintails. So they go up there and nest in it. Well, kind of like our egg salvage program, these farmers come in there and just wipe them out. And pintail, they're a little more fragile than like a mallard. So they'll nest, and then they'll try and nest again, but they're not very good at it, know. And the real issue is not like a lot of this data that we're talking about that's coming out, it's not the hunter harvest that's causing this population decline. It's the habitat, the nesting habitat that's really causing it's not really a decline. It's just the pintail have been fairly steady. They just didn't bounce back when all the other ducks bounced back from the 70s when, a lot of birds, the populations kind of dipped. Well, all those other populations came back for the most part, but pintail didn't. And that's kind of why there's such a restrictive bag on them,
And if we want to increase more duck productivity, we need quality habitat on the wintering ground. so that they can go and make more babies.
Yeah,
the
we're
higher
sending
their
them
fitness level, the better. And if landowners, if the limit continues to be 1, is what I'm arguing. If the limit continues to be 1, and I'm a duck club, I might be putting my management into green-winged teal or mallards or gadwalls or something else where I can get closer to shooting 7 ducks.
And that's already happening. Yeah, that's already happening. Yep.
And so it's kind of double edged. Now we got the nesting ground problem. Now we got the wintering ground problem.
Yeah, I mean,
and maybe if the powers that be would change the management to encourage 3 pintails, 1 hen, maybe there'd be better wintering habitat.
Yeah,
that's kind of the argument.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, honestly, I think the wintering
cycle.
The wintering habitat's going to be pretty sufficient as long as we keep flooding our rice fields. They'll be pretty happy on the wintering grounds. Yeah, it's really the nesting habitat that really needs the attention. And there's been a lot of talks of different things. I don't think it's come to fruition, but people were talking about a pintail stamp. And so like a duck stamp, you buy your pintail stamp, and that gives you possibly another bird in the bag, and all that money goes to habitat where they need it, up in the nesting grounds.
That's a heck of an idea.
Yeah, so there's been, there's all kinds of ideas being tossed out there, trying to kind of improve the habitat.
Who is talking that idea up?
We just, in general, speaking with some biologists and some employees and stuff. So.
That's a heck of an idea.
Yeah.
I think hunters would do it.
Yeah.
I would do it. I'd come to California.
If I was in California, everybody
I
know that has a rice blind would buy a pintail stamp.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah, just, trying to think of different ideas that, might be able to help. But, it's like I said, it's really not the hunters aren't really causing the population to go down. We've had a restrictive limit for quite a while, and it's not, the mallard, the population isn't bouncing back. The pintails aren't just jumping up because we're not shooting them. And it also can be, bad for the population if you're, the sex ratios are kind of getting skewed pretty bad because, California, you see, they're doing courtship flights right now. I'm sure you saw it. Where there's,
every 5 or 10 pintails I see, it's 9 drakes per hen.
Yep. And, the last estimate I heard was about 1 to 6 ratio, 1 female to 6 drakes. Well, you got to think when they're up there on the breeding grounds, and those hens get up off the nest. I don't know if you've ever seen a hen mallard or hen anything get off the nest. If there's drakes around, they're harassing her. They're chasing her around. They're giving her a hard time. So, like, every time that hen gets up there, there's, potentially 6 drakes harassing her and giving her a hard time. Like, that's going to affect her ability to nest successfully.
Right. Change the subject. Let's get down to important matters. What's the plan for tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're going to go hunt a little flooded cornfield that we got, and we're going to hopefully try and shoot some wood ducks.
Target wood ducks.
Yep.
What is the wind going to continue?
I think it's going to finally die down. Yeah, we've had a couple days some pretty strong north wind, and I think tomorrow it'll kind of die down a little bit. Hopefully that'll be good. Hopefully we get some birds flying.
What's the limit on wood ducks here in California?
7 wood ducks.
Any sex, 7 wood ducks.
Any sex, no restrictions. Yep.
That's a real treat.
Yeah.
7 ducks, period, in the bag,
right.
But wood ducks, because in Mississippi and everywhere I've ever hunted, the limit's 3.
Yeah, yep, yeah. The Pacific flyway is a little bit different than the eastern population of wood ducks. There's a lot more wood ducks over there, but the Pacific flyway, just a lot of people aren't harvesting wood ducks here, so you can kind of use that harvest data and to kind of justify having a restricted bag on them.
Mm-hmm. I keep up with you on social media. You've got a very, very interesting Instagram page particularly. How can people listening plug into you in social media?
Yeah, so I just started a page on Instagram. It's called Birdyologist, and I really just started kind of posting stuff about what we got to do. The biology, the field work, shooting the rocket nets, catching the birds, banding them, doing wood duck boxes, and all that stuff. So yeah, I just try and post, the life of a biologist, the life of a field biologist.
And what has been the public response? I mean,
it's been crazy, man. I mean, I never thought I'd get over 10,000 followers for just posting duck banding stuff, but yeah, it's been really neat and it's been really cool. I've get a lot of messages. You see all the cool stuff, the rocket nets going off and stuff, but what a lot of people don't see are those messages that you get, from once a week I get a message from a high school student or something. Hey man, what a cool job. What do I need to do to grow up to do, waterfowl biology or biology in general or whatever, and just trying to help those kids, steer them in the right direction.
How does it feel? I I get a range of emails too, and I'm just curious, how does that feel?
It just feels surreal, it really does. I mean, I'm just plugging along, and then you get these people that are just like, man, they just kind of look up to you, and it's just it's a neat feeling to kind of try and give back.
It's incredible influence.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's fun.
You're playing a role in a young person's life, like a teacher,
right? Yeah.
Like a mentor.
Yep.
And it's really not what you sign up for when you start posting stuff
I
on
didn't
social
think
media.
It was, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I didn't start Birdyologist.
Exactly.
There's no way, So, it's been a neat ride. It's fun, and, I just enjoy kind of sharing what I get to do for work. And then, I really just kind of try and tie it into, I'm a hunter too, and I'm also a biologist, and so I'm really trying to help kind of bridge the hunter and the biologist together, and kind of just keep them informed on what we're doing. A lot of folks don't like to share, banning information or where they're, we don't really say where we're banning, but, if we catch pintail, like there's no harm in saying, hey, we caught some pintail and banded them. I'm not going to give you a GPS coordinate somewhere we did it, but I just think it's important. A lot of these projects that we do through California Waterfowl, that's my employer, but a lot of these projects we do are funded by duck hunters. I mean, we're getting grants from duck stamp money, all kinds of stuff, and so I just feel it's important to keep that connection to hunters and what we do and kind of showing them, what we're doing out there in the field with essentially their money.
I think that's such a good point because we duck hunters generally, I'm not reading the Federal Register. We're not reading the Federal Register.
Right.
And even if I dared, I don't have time in a day to read that legalese.
Yeah.
I just need good information.
Yeah.
And because I think all of us hunters want to participate. We want to be. We want it. Duck hunting is a participation sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And anything we can do. I mean, if you look at the whole waterfowl conservation movement, it was spearheaded by hunters.
Yeah, and that's the two messages I get a lot are how do I become a biologist, and then the next one is how do I volunteer? How do I get out and help you? And, we try our best to get people out there. So we'll actually, I was talking about the hatchery. We'll actually do hatchery events where we'll invite the public to come out there and band ducks with us. I mean, a lot of that's changed with the new COVID regulations and all that stuff. We're really limited right now on volunteers, but hopefully things will get back to normal a little bit. And, we're open to having people come out and help us, band birds and stuff when it works out,
What would you tell some of the young people listening, and you probably some of your followers are listening, what advice would you give them to pursue? They're in high school right now. Where do they need to go from now to end up in your boots one day?
Volunteer, man. You got to get out there and volunteer. You gotta get out there and you got to work hard. It's a competitive field. That's what I don't try and sugarcoat it. I mean, we don't get paid a ton of money, and it's a competitive field, but it's fun. You really have to have the passion to get into it. But yeah, I mean, volunteer, man. That's the reason why I helped kind of got my foot in the door with California Waterfowl is when I was going to Chico State, I helped start a California Waterfowl Chico State chapter.
Oh.
And so me and some students got together and we kind of had these monthly meetings, and we'd invite, people to come talk at our meetings, and kind of, we had some folks from California Waterfowl come in, and we had, a rice farmer, really famous rice farmer family come in and give us a talk about rice farming and all that. And, so that's really kind of how I got my foot in the door. But, yeah, you really gotta volunteer. You gotta help as much as you can, and you gotta have like a strong work ethic. You can't just show up and be lazy. You gotta. I mean, this is a physical job. You gotta get out there and work. I mean, we're setting rocket nets up in the middle of the night while mosquitoes are trying to carry you away. And
Yeah.
You gotta be a little bit tough.
Yeah.
So, but as far as the schooling goes, you gotta kind of. There's some good schools out there, and you got to pick a school either in your area or look up just wildlife programs, wildlife biology, there's some waterfowl programs, and you go, and most folks get a degree in wildlife biology, and nowadays most folks have a master's or even a doctorate, and it gets pretty competitive. So go out there, volunteer, get your schooling done, get a degree, and just try and get your foot in the door and work hard.
I've got this question I just thought of, and I can't believe I've met with a lot of biologists like yourself, Nikolai, for example, and others, and I just now thought of this question, but I'm curious. You banned a lot of ducks.
Yeah.
You banned a lot of ducks.
Yeah, I added it up. It was about 50,000 birds I've helped
50,000 birds you've banded. Duck bans, and here's where I'm coming from. Duck bans, on the one hand, I'm excited when I kill one. I get to report it to the biologist, see where it come from, its provenance, whatever like that. But on the other hand, I'm the second person since the hand of God to touch that bird. When I shoot an unbanded bird, I'm shooting a truly wild, unspoiled. I'm not shooting a specimen or a data.
Yeah.
I'm shooting a wild bird.
Yep.
But it's this thing about these bands. It's almost like this prestige, this award, this thing that makes
culture
makes
and
normal people kind of weird.
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. People are weird. Yeah. We got to be, like I said, we got to be careful about where we say we're banning. Like we have GPS data on where I could show you right now where birds are in the valley, but we can't show that to the public. I mean, there'd be one guy out there who'd go and try and, shoot them or
Strip
something.
mine them, yeah.
And so
I've seen that before.
But yeah, it's really this culture of bans. To us, it's a data point. And that's what it's always been. It's a data point.
It's a data
you get
point.
the age, you get the migration, you get all that stuff that we need to kind of monitor these populations. But yeah, there's people that have that band envy, and they just got to have a lanyard of bands for status or what. I don't know what it is, but
now on the other hand, it is a question: how do you feel when you shoot a band?
I love it. I think it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I haven't shot one in a few years, and
have you ever shot one of your own?
So I have not. I really want to shoot one of my pintail, but they're pretty tough. Yeah. But
I want to shoot one of your shovelers. To be honest with you.
Yeah. There's a handful of those, not many, but there's a few of them. I was helping doing a Canada goose banding project, and I probably didn't actually ban the bird, but I shot one of those birds from the day we were banding. Yeah. So that's the closest I've come. It's not. I wouldn't really say it's one of mine, but it's close. Yeah. I want those pintail or a widgeon, man. Those are the ones I want. We've been banding quite a few pintail widgeon over the years. So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The widgeon kind of tend to. We do postseason banding for pintail. So right after duck season, we're out there setting rocket nets trying to catch pintail. And the widgeon actually grind up with the pintail quite often, so we'll actually catch quite a few widgeon and pintail together. A couple of Eurasians, too, out there.
I've heard some stories about Eurasian widgeons out here. Y'all
there's
do
a bunch.
See them out
Yeah,
here.
There's quite a few. It seems like the population's kind of growing and growing and growing. We actually... I can't really tell you what happened yet because they haven't publicized anything. But we went out and captured a pair. We assume it was a pair because we could tell by the GPS. But we put GPS backpacks on a pair of Eurasian widgeon. So as far as I know, nobody's documented a nesting Eurasian widgeon in North America. There's been a lot of anecdotal stuff, but nothing solid. And so we captured this pair. And it was pretty neat following them where they went. I think the hen might have disappeared, but the male, he went up and he started coming back down. So it's pretty neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Folks, y'all have been listening to my friend. Y'all been listening to my friend Brian Huber, California Waterfowl Association. Wow, duck hunting in California. Everybody needs to add it to their bucket list. But whether it's California or Mississippi or North Carolina or anywhere y'all are listening from today, duck hunting doesn't happen by accident. I mean, there's a lot of work and a lot of intelligent thought and a lot of biology type stuff that goes into this wonderful resource we all share. Thank y'all for listening to Duck Season Somewhere. I'll see you from the road next time.